Fellow Mountaineers, old grads, and young lads and lasses, you made it to another edition of the Trust the Beard podcast. Welcome in. I'm your host, The Beard. It's a beautiful day in the Mountain State today. This is 9:46 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th, 2025. Big game coming up for West Virginia. On the road at Kansas. We know how good their quarterback is, athletic, dynamic. They got a pretty potent offense, a good head coach with a track record of winning, having great success after the bye week, which Kansas is on. But the numbers, they might tell a little bit of a different story. I think West Virginia might have a chance here. Stick with me. We'll jump right into it. Okay, Mountaineer fans, we're just going to jump right into the offensive numbers as we look at West Virginia traveling out to Lawrence, Kansas to take on the Jayhawks and the potent Jalen Daniels under center for Kansas. But you look here, you compare these. West Virginia there is on the left, Kansas on the right. Further to the right is my little collar rank. So anything that's ranked from 1 to 25 is red. So your top tier team. 26 to 50 is orange. 51 to 75 is yellow, which means you're about middle of the pack. 76 to 99 means you're pretty cold, right? You're not very good at that stat. And then plus or 100 plus, you're in the purple, means you're pretty much the worst in the country. And so if you look at West Virginia's side, we're one of the worst in the country in a lot of these stats, which kind of is surprising given, Rich Rodriguez and his potent offense. But we have to remind ourselves we are in the infancy stages, right? The toddler stages of this offense. I mean, Rodriguez has said it himself that these players are rookies in this, right? So it takes time to adapt it. I said it before, the whole hard edge thing, as much as it displayed itself at Pitt on Saturday, it's always a work in progress, right? It's not a pill you take or something you put it in your sports drink and all of a sudden you're just playing harder and faster than everybody else. It takes time to reach that peak level. Again, we saw flashes of it against Pitt. We didn't give up. We definitely wore them out in the final 2 minutes. You could tell, we went on a 17-0 run to win the game into overtime. So you see glimpses of what that hard edge Rich Rodriguez style is. And what I've said before, what us old grads have been complaining about for 17 years, right? So all the young lads looking on what you saw against Pitt, that's what we got to enjoy for 6 years under Rodriguez. I should say 7. That's how long he was there. But again, 0-1. A little shaky. We had our moments, though. But anyway, back to the offense here. So, I mean, we're lacking in a lot, right? We're only generating 4.5 yards per play, 2.9 per rush. That's some of the worst in the country. Passing a little bit better, 7.3. We're about middle of the pack. Opposing sacks per game. So basically that's what how many sacks our O-line is giving up. 3.5 per game. Absolutely one of the worst. The sack percentage. So that's how many times we get sacked per drop back from Nico or Henderson, whoever it may be, 10.5%. It's not great at all. Third down conversion rate is bad. We're only getting about 3.5 per game. Fourth down conversions, we're getting about 1 per game. So we do make up for it a little bit in that category, but our third down conversion rate, 23%, 125 out of 136. And fourth down, we're about 50-50, which, not terrible. But you add all that stuff up, and that gives our offense an overall ranking of 96.2. So in the blue, we're just not that good yet. We did what we needed to do against Pitt late in the game, but we have to see that more consistently, right? That's not something – being down 14 points late in the game is not something we can always overcome. And those are special circumstances, right? It was at home, huge game against your rival, a disappointing loss the week before. Like you wanted to come out and prove yourself, all that stuff. It's easy to get hyped up for that game. And not that you can't get hyped up for at Kansas, but it's a different environment. They're going to be hyped too because they are, of course, they've had a bye, so they're ready for a game. And plus they're introducing their new stadium to the Big 12. We get to be, the honored guest to christen it for Big 12 play. So that definitely plays heavy in Kansas' favor. But I'm jumping off track and kind of going into my final thoughts already, but we'll take a look at the Kansas offense. Obviously, they fare a lot better. But when I look at these numbers, nothing blows blows off the page, like blows my mind. There's nothing here that really stands out, right? Average scoring margin, they're a little under a touchdown. Middle of the pack, their yards per play 5.7. Middle of the pack, rushing yards 4.2. The low end of the middle of the pack. I would expect more out of a Kansas offense. Just knowing what I know of them before I even look into the numbers. And I have to say, it doesn't really surprise me, or it doesn't impress me. It does surprise me, rather. Now, they've done well in their passing yards per attempt, 49, 49th in the country at 8 yards per pass. And we'll get into more of their offense later with some actual numbers. But they have had success throwing the ball. And we'll break down, Markio versus Daniels in a little bit as well. But opposing sacks per game, they give up 2. So, you can get to the quarterback. They're middle of the pack there. Sack percentage, 7.41. That's not great either. 88th in the country. Third down conversion rate or per game, they're not good. They're 2.5. Worse than we are. Fourth down conversions per game, they get 2, so they're pretty good at that so far this year. And then you look at their third down conversion rate, almost as bad as ours, 123 at 23.8%. But they do have a higher fourth down conversion rate. Now, they've only made 2, so it's, but at this point, the data is what it is in limited games. So you add up all their stuff, you rank it or average it, and they come out to a 66.4. So overall, I'll stop if you find this surprising. Hold your breath. Kansas's offense has been playing better than West Virginia's offense. I know. It's crazy, right? I don't think, right, and the numbers bear this out, right? We're not breaking any new ground here. I'm not. So basically, it's going to come down to defense, I believe, for West Virginia again. And before I move any further, so look at this red zone scoring. So West Virginia has gotten the red zone 10 times in 3 games. So not terrible, but they have scored a touchdown 7 of those times, so 70%. That's pretty good, right? That's a good clip. It's usually one of the best in the country. Now, these aren't ranked because the site I use, I'll give credit to teamrankings.com. They don't separate touchdowns and field goals in the red zone scoring. I don't like to do field goals. I've said this before. Again, it's probably worth repeating. Just about any kicker can knock in a 40-yard field, right? And so that's when you're roughly at the 27. Or no, I shouldn't do public math. I'm not going to do it. So you're definitely well within the red zone, where the ball snapped if you can make a 40-yard field goal. And so, or you're at least close to the red zone anyway. I don't really count those. Those are kind of easy. It's can you score touchdowns when you get down in there? And West Virginia has 7 times out of 10. That's pretty good, right? Out of 3 games. And that does include all 3, even FCS. So I get this stat off the NCAA football stat page, and they list all the games you've played. Wow, Team Rankings only does FBS opponents. And so anything that's ranked here, that's color-coded, purple, yellow, whatever, that is versus only FBS teams, right? The FCS game, the WVU and Kansas has played do not count in these stats, except for red zone score, only because Team Rankings doesn't separate it out. But anyway, so Kansas has got to the red zone 17 times. It's really good. That's really good for only 3 games. And they've scored 11 times at 65%. You'd be probably top third of the country with that if I actually went through and ranked all that stuff. So that's pretty good too. Their offense is playing pretty well. Now, as we can see, what are their faults? Okay, what do they do terribly? Well, their third down conversions per game isn't great, and their third down conversion rate isn't great. So it seems like they're not keeping teams on the field. But if you look deeper in the numbers, they're getting a lot of chunk plays in the passing attack. And if you look, I'm not going to show it, but I'm looking at their stats right now for receiving, where they have 2 players that have double-digit receptions. Emmanuel Henderson Jr. with 12, Cam Pickett with 10, each getting 183, 124 yards on the season, averaging 15.3, 12.4. But you look at some of their other you can't look. I'm looking, but you can listen. Some of the other wide receivers, Wentz has 7. I think it's Hanukkah, the tight end, has 9 receptions for 95 yards. And really that's the bulk of your reception. But you have guys 15.3 averaging, Henderson, 12.4. This is yards per catch, 14.7, 10.6, 20, 21, right, 10.3. And these are guys that have more than one reception, right? They at least have two or three. So when they do get their targets, they're pretty deep. Some of the longs here, long is 62, 21, 50, 24, 27, 28. Right, those are like the top six. So they're getting chunk plays. And I think that's why some of these numbers look a little skewed. But they haven't rushed as much as I thought they would. And honestly, Daniels hasn't rushed as much as I thought he would. For the year, he's rushed it 21 times. He's second on the team for 90 yards. It's about 4.3 average. He has a long of 23 and 1 touchdown. So he's not breaking these huge runs like we would anticipate that he has, even against FCS talent. And then, from under center, he's 54-75, 679 yards, 72 completion percentage. Again, long of 62, has 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's been sacked 3 times. And honestly, I did the numbers on this, and if West Virginia's going to have a chance, it's basically shutting down Daniel. So Kansas has put up 1,268 yards of offense so far through 3 games, 745 passing and 523 rushing. Daniels has accounted for 679 of the pass, 90 yards of the rush for 769. So, you do the math, and he accounts for about 60.6% of Kansas's offense. And he's only rushed for about 30 yards per game. So that tells me he's getting 60% of the offense done through the air. Although he's still a threat to run, I have some ideas about how we can limit him. But I think the key is, from going through these numbers, is keeping him limited. I don't think he's the kind of athlete that you're not just going to stop, right? He's too talented, too athletic. He's going to make his plays, and you just have to limit those on defense. And so now we'll cut over to the defense, and we'll kind of look at those stats. And then later we'll break down Markio and Daniels just in their overall rankings. Okay, now we are going to look at the defense. As you can see, West Virginia get on the left, Kansas on the right. We look a lot better in these categories, right? A few reds, mostly orange. 1 purple and a blue. That's not terrible, but if you look overall compared to Kansas's defense, looks pretty good, right? So we'll run through it here. We're only allowing 4.9 yards per play on defense. We're ranked 41st. Again, that's second tier. Rush yards per play, we're only allowing 2.8. I think that's going to bode well for West Virginia, as one, Kansas doesn't have much of a rush attack anyway. So maybe what Kansas can muster up, maybe we can stop it in its tracks. Opposing pass yards per attempt, we give up 8 yards per pass. As we saw with Kansas's offense, they pass for 8 yards. So that's going to be interesting there. And I heard it on another podcast. Has our secondary really been tested yet? We were able to get to Holstein pretty quickly, and so we weren't able, or they weren't able to get big chunk yards. They do have a few. They had a couple big time plays that we were able to slip through, but it wasn't as consistent as what it could be against Kansas. Right? Again, we were getting a lot of pressure to Holstein because he's mobile, but he wasn't as mobile as we thought he was going to be. Right? I think we kind of expected what happened with the Neil Brown defense a little bit, and giving up those big yards late in 2024, but we were able to corral him, handle him, get him down, and really just beat him up. I don't think we're going to be able to do that with Daniels. He's a lot more elusive, obviously more mobile. And so the secondary really could be tested. And if you look here, as far as sacks go, we are number 3 in the country at 4.5 per game, and number 7 in the country with 11.54% sack percentage. So again, that's the amount of time you get a sack versus how many times their quarterback drops back for a pass. So we are getting him 11.5% of the time. Really, really good. Are we going to be able to sack Daniels? That's a tough question. Me personally, what I thought was, do you put a spy on him? And is that spy Fred Perry? Right? I think he would be athletic enough, and you really don't have to stop Daniels. You're not, that's a hard task, but you have to limit him. Don't let him break off on any runs. But also you kind of have to limit his ability in the pocket too. And I think that's where a lot of the pressure comes in. And I know it's like asking a lot, right? Easier said than done. Oh, just contain Jalen Daniels. I always get confused which name is which. But we've been able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback this year. And so I think that's going to have to be something the defense does again. Right? Not let him get comfortable and set making big throws. Right? I know he can throw on the run too. But if he's doing that more often, he's going to make a mistake. Right? He had 12 interceptions last year for various reasons. Kansas fans are hopeful that he's cleaned that up, obviously, but he's proven that he will hand you the ball or he will give you the ball. And so getting a lot of pressure, I think, is important, but also I think having some sort of spy just to keep him contained. Maybe it's as much as not letting a 8-yard gain become like a 40-yard gain, right? Force him to the sideline, out of bounds, things like that. How you do that, I don't know. But that's why they pay Zach Alley the huge bucks, is to figure that out. And I'm confident that he can, right? He's so far through 3 games, Zach Alley has showed me that he is extremely competent defensive coordinator, first off, and kind of crazed mad scientist too, which is awesome because he's dialing up a lot of stuff that Pitt wasn't ready for. And hopefully he's able to do it again with Kansas. Because I think, again, any great quarterback, even Tom Brady, you get him rattled. That's how you limit their effectiveness, right? And so the more we can do that with Daniels, just getting him uncomfortable. And honestly, that's probably the game plan for every game for the rest of the season, is try to make their quarterback as uncomfortable as possible. And eventually they're going to crack if your offense is able to sustain something. Right, we were able to do that against Pitt, and they paid for it. Like, we punished them defensively, but our offense was able to get enough rhythm to keep up with what limited offense we allowed Pitt to have. Right, we gave them 2 interceptions; they only got 6 points off of it. And so, going down the list here, third downs per game, we give up 15.5. Kansas doesn't make a lot, as we saw in the offense, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, we only allow 1 fourth down conversion per game. Our third down conversion rate on defense is pretty good, 29.3. So while we've given up a lot, we tend to get teams in third down a lot. So it's kind of a volume thing. Right, if our conversion rate is 29, right, one of the best in the country, but we're giving up a lot, and we're 113, that tells me that we're just putting a lot of teams on third down, right? We're not letting them get that on first and second down, which that's good, right? It sucks that you're giving up that many, but I think the conversion rate is more important. Like, that kind of tests your volume, right? They get a lot of third downs opportunities, but they're not converting them as much as you'd think. And so if you look at West Virginia's category here, if you average the ranking here, it's about 42.56. And so our defense is looking pretty good. And, defense travels, things like that. So I expect us to have another big game. There's nothing that our defense has done or not done, or Zach Alley has done or not done, to make me believe we wouldn't have another big game. They've been very consistent. And so look at Kansas's defense. And I think this is where we could take advantage. And so yards per play, they're allowing 5.4, middle of the pack, allowing 3.9 rush yards per play, 7.5 pass yards per play. So that's almost as bad as West Virginia at this point. They're 82nd in the country. So it looks like we may have the ability to pass on them. But again, with the Rodriguez's offense, you got to get the run game going. And so can Ty Edwards be that same guy? I'll just say this. If we play the way we did against Pitt, against Kansas, I think we'll win. I really do. I'll say this. The way we played with Markio as the starter, right? Erase the Henderson and the Scotty Fox stuff. I think if we play that way, right, when Markio was in, we continue that, I think we win. Now, obviously, it's not going to be scripted exactly, but I think of our level of intensity, the attitude we have, and you just multiply or not multiply, but you just copy those numbers and apply it to this game, right? Ty Edwards with the rushing that he had, Nico and some of the catches the other guys had. If you replicate those numbers and you added it to this game, I think we win. I really do. And so, can we be that consistent with that kind of intensity? Right, that's kind of what Rodriguez is building his culture on, is being intense all the time, every game, every snap, 100%. Like, it is a lifestyle. You're going to be intense. And so you look at their sacks per game. They have 10 on the season, 3.5, so they are getting to the quarterback. That is a bit of concern given a little bit of struggles with our O-line, and to me personally, Markio's decision-making. I put it out there on Twitter, and I believe it to be true, is I think Markio is athletic enough to be successful in this offense. I just think, obviously, one, we need better O-line play. That's every team could say that. And two, I think Markio's decision-making just need to get a little bit quicker. And it's really no fault of his own. It's not like he's not capable. But like Rodriguez said, he is a rookie in this offense. So I think when that part slows down for him, and if the O-line can just block just a tad better, right? I think Markio can be very successful in this offense. I think he'll be a real weapon. When he decides to run, I think he can. Like, if it's a called run play, like and you only need him to get maybe 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. Like, he's not going to bust one open like Pat White or something. But if your quarterback can rush for 3, 4, 5 yards a carry, I mean, that's all you need. You're trying to stay ahead of schedule. That's it, right? Second and shorts, third and shorts. That's what you're trying to do. And so that brings me up to their Kansas's third down conversions per game, fourth down conversions per game, third down conversion rate, fourth down conversion. They are bad. They give up 17 third down conversions per game. That's 125th in the country. And they give up 2.5 fourth downs per game. That's 126 in the country. And then their conversion rate is teams are converting third downs on them 50% of the time. And then their fourth down conversion rate is 71.43. It's bad. So the good thing is, if we can stay ahead of schedule, we can run on them, which I believe we can. If Ty Edwards is up to the challenge again, like if he becomes the established back and can replicate similar performances like he did against Pitt, starting this weekend, we can run on Kansas. I 100% believe that. And if we can keep those downs short, right? Second, third down, even fourth down. I mean, you look at the numbers right there. They're all in purple. Kansas is one of the worst third, fourth down conversion rate defenses in the country. So if we're keeping it short, I think we can, and if we're going tempo, I think we get into their depth early. And if we can get some pressure on Daniels, just limit him. Just keep him limited. We'll see. Now, if it turns out to be another Navarro situation where we just cannot get a handle on him, I think we're in trouble. Because he's the best quarterback we're going to face up to this point. And it's a step up. It's another challenge, right? We started with Robert Morris, and we stepped up to Ohio on the road, and then we stepped up again to Pitt in the rivalry, and now we're stepping up again. A team that's certainly top half of the league, right? We know what Kansas can do. They can be a very dangerous team. They were playing well at the end of last season. And so I don't think we're going to be able to completely stop the Kansas offense. But if we can limit it enough, get some turnovers, I think we'll be fine. Offensively, we just got to stay ahead of the chains. We don't have to do anything spectacular, right? I think we just stay ahead of the chains and stay on schedule. I think we'll be fine. I think the defense will take care of what they need to. And so we come back, I'll do a little bit of QB battle, and then we'll do some final thoughts, and I'll have my final score prediction. Okay, before we get started here, I put up a little picture. I created this. I thought about putting it on a T-shirt. I will be at the Utah game, so I thought about making this into a shirt. So if you're not familiar with this, the Let's Get Fat. So this is the formation, the heavy jumbo formation that Rich Rod ran against Pitt late in the game there. And he was on the Pat McAfee show the other day, and he said they might get another lineman in there if he can run the ball. So he said we should call it the fat formation, PHAT. And so I kind of just took with that and ran with it. And so that's what I came up with. We'll see. We'll see. I might make it a T-shirt. So if you go into the Utah game, look for that. I'll let you know if I end up doing that or not. But okay, so we're looking at the QB battle here between Nico Marchio for West Virginia and Jalen Daniels for Kansas. Obviously, Daniels, the much more polished quarterback, as you can see with the color-coded stats there. But I believe Marchio has earned the right to be the starter. Obviously, with this play against Pitt late last week, I think he solidified himself. And mostly because the other quarterbacks haven't shown me enough. Now, they've been limited. Scotty Fox, I think, probably won't see a snap again this year unless we're really just dominating somebody. Or you bring him in for some sort of trick play passes package kind of deal or something like that. Henderson, I believe, should get a chance as well. Not necessarily to be a starter, but just come in, be a change of pace guy, right? Some QB design plays or draws and stuff like that, just to change it up. But Marchio is your number one. I believe he has earned it. But looking through the numbers here, Daniels has 10 total touchdowns. He ranks 6th in the country. Marchio only has 3. He's 74th. Now, if you look at the asterisks beside these numbers, when the site I use, the teamrankings.com, so they do individual players as well. And the ones that are marked with an asterisk is because Marchio was kind of so far down the list that he wasn't on the list, right? They usually do like the top 100, top 75, maybe top 80, depending on the category. And I just put him at 74 because the last player was 73 and they didn't rank anymore. So while this is 74, I actually don't know what his ranking is. It's well below anything that they were willing to put on a piece of paper. And so, I mean, it is what it is. So these callers can be a little deceiving as far as that goes. It's 74 in my, caller ranking chart, but he could be much lower. I don't know. I was kind of just giving him the benefit of the doubt on these. So pass completions, they're pretty equal. Marchio 51%, Daniels at 54. Passes completed. So they've thrown about the same, kind of middle of the pack. He doesn't throw it a lot, right? He's only attempted 54, but he has like 9 passing touchdowns, as you can see. And so he has a high completion percentage. His passing yards per game is kind of average. But again, passing TDs, 9 on the season and 12%, meaning that's the percent of his passes that were touchdowns. And so he's only completing 50. I can't talk. So he's only completing 54 for the season. And that's, middle of the pack. But his TD percentage is high. His passing TDs is high. His total TDs is high. So that tells me he's getting big chunk plays. And so his interception percentage, that one's going to be interesting, right? 2.7, the amount of times his passes are intercepted. That's 83rd in the country. That is pretty low. So as the stats show, and I told you before, he will give you the ball. Now his yards per throw or yards per pass thrown is 24th in the country at 9.1. And then his overall QB rating is 182.3, ranked 13th in the country. So again, this YPP thrown, yards per pass, 9.1. So he's getting chunk plays, and he's scoring a lot on those chunk plays. So it's a big play offense based on what these numbers are telling me. So can West Virginia's defense limit that? We'll have to see. So his overall ranking is 29.56. So we look at Marchio. Kind of went off on a Daniels tangent and didn't get back to Marchio, but his pass completion, one of the best in the country, top 20, 71.8%. His interception ratio is 1.4. So that's 49th in the country. So that tells me that he is not putting the ball in harm's way, right? He has a high completion percentage, a low interception percentage. That's good. That's what you want out of your quarterback, especially in this young offense, this new offense that's, basically an infant or a toddler at this point. as far as its development and how the players are, acclimating to it. But when you're learning a new offense, that's ball protection is key because as we've seen, we're not generating a lot of offense right now. So you can't afford to give the ball away and then not generate offense. So that's where your defense has to rise up and create turnovers to give your offense more opportunity because you're not playing so well. So all that makes sense. And so I went off on another tangent there, but passing yards, he's middle of the pack. Passing TDs, right, 86%. Again, an asterisk because it went to 85, and that's as far down as it went. So I don't know if that's supposed to be 200%. I think it's supposed to be 2%. Yeah, that would be he would be the best in the country if it was. Pretty sure that's supposed to be like 2%. So only 2% of his passes are for touchdowns. He has a low TD percentage. So, again, we're not being really explosive right now. And so his passes are just enough to get us by, right? We don't have the explosive plays like Kansas does. Hopefully that changes, right? But again, he has a low interception percentage. His yards per pass thrown is 8.4, which is 43rd. That's pretty good. It's a lot better than I thought. We're getting a little bit more depth into our throws than I thought we were. A lot of that's probably came from last week, honestly. And then he has a QB rating of 148, middle of the pack. So not terrible, right? If you look at the final ranking, he's 51. Daniels is 29.5. If you told me going into the season that by the time we start Big 12 play that Markio was a high mid-tier, potential low second-tier quarterback, would you take that? I think I would. Of course, it's easy to say that now, knowing what we know, that we've struggled in the offense, right? We didn't hit the ground running like I think some people thought we would. And I had hopes that we might too, because we know what the Rich Rod offense is all about. And it's just a matter of when it takes off, not if. So I think we were kind of hoping we would see it earlier, especially against a team like OU. But, we got it done against Pitt. And it's just if we can sustain that success on offense, did we take the next step and we can see it more consistently? I think we will be able to in this game simply because I don't like Kansas's defense, honestly. And so we'll just go ahead and get into the final thoughts kind of thing. And then when I come back, we'll do final score prediction, all that stuff. So overall, I think West Virginia can win this game. Just like I did with Pitt after I watched some of the tape and went through the numbers. I mean, don't get me wrong, Kansas has a good offense, but they don't have a great defense. They don't even have a good defense, I would say. Now, what does West Virginia have? A really good defense, maybe even a great defense. And, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, an average offense. And that's probably, being a little generous. Again, we saw flashes against Pitt, but can you be more consistent? Again, I think that we can against Kansas because, I don't trust their defense. Really what it's going to come down to, again, is our defense. Can we create those turnovers? Can we limit their offensive opportunity? So I think the offense is going to be able to play. I think we're going to be able to move the ball against them. Defensively, I think we can hold Jaden Daniels in check. All right, these are just, I'm hoping kind of things. But, I think that's the game plan, obviously, is to hold him in check. Again, like I said, he is responsible for about 61% of their offense, and that's mostly through the air. So if you could somehow, however you have to limit his ability to make big throws, that's what you do. Is it a spy? I don't know. Is it just blitzing him, get him on the run, get him uncomfortable? Obviously, I think that'll work. How do you do it? How do you scheme that up? I'm not sure. I just thinking to myself, and I'm no whiz at defenses, I kind of was thinking so sorry about that. Had a coughing fit, had to cut the video for a second. Where was I? So I think our ability to limit Jalen Daniels is going to be key, right? And I'm not saying anything new. Obviously, everyone has that game plan, or at least wants to do that. It's like, but can you execute that? Are you able to keep him in check? Again, our defense hasn't shown me anything that tells me they can't do that. We've been very aggressive. And we did a great job against OU in the second half, right? We shut them out, got 3 turnovers. How many forced fumbles did we have against Pitt last week? We punished Eli Holstein. I don't know if we can punish Daniels, but now I remember what I was going to say. So how do you stop Daniels, right? How do you stop him? I think this was just me coming up with an idea in my head, like, how do you defend against X, Y, and Z? And my initial thought was you go with so my thought was the 3-3. And I know it's a lot of moans and groans. Not this one again. But hear me out. The 3-3, what does Jalen Daniels do well? So far this season, he's been passing the ball really well. Big chunk plays, high completion percentage, and a lot of touchdowns. So he's been airing it out pretty good based on the numbers. Well, what does the 3-3, what is that built to do? It's built to limit the passing, right? You have 5 defenders in the secondary. It's built to defend the pass and have a lot of speed on the field, or more speed than you would normally have, which I think is key. Now, with that, if you have 5 defenders, obviously Perry's going to be one of them. Do you put him as a spy? Do you drop him down? So you're kind of have like a 3-4 almost, where Perry is just allowed to roam the field and always keep track of where Daniels. Now, you probably don't run that all the time because eventually a coach like so a guy like Leipold's going to see that stuff. He's going to catch on and he's going to have a counter for it. So you got to surprise him. But I think that's something you can do. Now, are you still able to get pressure? You still have 6 in the box, right? 3 up front and 3 linebackers. And assuming if Chase Wilson is healthy, it'll be him, Ben Cutter, and Carrico. I would assume. I don't know their depth. I haven't looked at it. I don't know who's behind who, but to me, those are the 3 best linebackers. So you had, I keep want to say Tyler Perry. That's not his name. You had Fred Perry back there, and he's just kind of roaming. If he needs to drop back in coverage because it's a throw, defend the shallow stuff, but keep your eye on Daniels in case he decides to run. And you're not going to stop him again. You're not going to completely shut him down, but you can slow him down. And Perry's a guy that's athletic enough, I believe, and can lay the lumber. So maybe he makes Daniels think twice about taking off because he knows he's there. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know if that would actually work or not. What do I know? But when I come back, I'll have some the final predictions, and we'll close this one out.
We've had a lot of fun this episode. But you know what's not fun? Not subscribing to the Trust the Beard podcast. Don't pull a Darren DeVries and leave me hanging. Do the right thing. Hit that subscribe button. Like this episode. And share it with every couch-burning buddy in Mountaineer Nation. And make sure to follow me on Facebook, X, and Instagram at Earbeard.
Okay, it's time for the final prediction segment. We're going to look at some stats here. So obviously, Kansas offense ranks higher. So these are all the average rankings of all the categories I did, offensively, defensively. So obviously, Kansas takes the cake offensively. 66 is their overall ranking to West Virginia's 96. Defense, we obviously have the upper hand there, 42.5 overall ranking to Kansas's 77.5. Turnover margin. Kansas is actually doing a lot better. We are at 0.5 per game, so we are in the plus at 49th in the country. Now, again, this is just against FBS team, right? The FCS game does not count. And so, again, I don't do that because you should blow out an FCS team if you're, worth it. And then we look at the strength of schedule. They've had a harder schedule than we have, 23rd in the country. Ours is 47th. I have a feeling their game at Missouri really pushes up their strength of schedule. And also they took on Fresno State to open the season. That's no slouch, right? Fresno State's pretty quality G5 opponent, G6 opponent. And so they were able to handle them. Obviously, they lost to Missouri. But you look at the overall ranking, 45.99 for Kansas to West Virginia's 58.69. As you can see, that is a difference of 12.6, according to the BRI, the Beard Rating Index. So that goes to Kansas. Then you look at ESPN's FPI. their football power index that gives Kansas an 80.6% chance of winning. Vegas favors Kansas by 13.5. And then you look down there at the bottom, Vegas prediction over under is 56.5. So if they're giving Kansas 13.5, that rough estimate is they're predicting about a 35-21 victory over West Virginia for the Kansas Jayhawks. Now, the big question is, can Kansas score 35 points against the West Virginia defense? No, I don't think they can. Again, this defense has shown that they come to play, and they've done it consistently for 3 weeks. I don't think they just automatically don't do that in week 4 against Kansas. Now, are they facing an offense like they haven't at all this season? Obviously, yes. Kansas is a different dynamic, right? We thought the same thing about Pitt, but we were able to get to Holstein because he's not as mobile as someone like Jalen Daniels. And so can we get to him? That's going to be the important part. And also the important part is the offense, right? Can we stay in rhythm? We don't have to get chunk plays, just stay ahead 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. Can we do that? Stay ahead of the chains, as they say. Because I think we can run on this Kansas defense. And I think we can pass a little bit on it too, but we have to establish that run. And can Ty Edwards play at the same level he did against Pitt? If he can replicate that, we win. I said before, if the offense could replicate, if Ty Edwards can replicate that performance, right? Same carry, same numbers. Was it 146 yards, 3 touchdowns? If he does that again, we win 100%. I believe that. I think our offense is better than their defense. And I think their offense might be equal to the task of our defense, right? As well as they have performed. Kansas's offense has performed as well as our defense. So it's going to be a matter of which one gives in first. Do they eventually find those big chunk plays, holes in our defense, and expose us for the first time all season? Well, I wouldn't say first time. I think OU did a pretty good job in the first half, but it wasn't because of throwing, or it was the passing game. It was, Navarro's ability to escape the pocket and get out, and we didn't have anybody, to cover him, basically. And we've seen that Jalen Daniels hasn't run much this year. And so can we just limit their pass game? Again, I don't know how you do that. Maybe the 3-3 with Fred Perry as a spy. I don't even know if that's possible. I'm sure it is, but I don't know. I don't know what he has dialed up over there, but I'm sure Zach Alley is I think he's preparing for something. So I think we limit. So this is going to get final score prediction time. I do think we limit Kansas to the 35 points that Vegas is predicting. In fact, I believe that we limit them by 2 touchdowns, which gives them 21 points. I think we hold them to 21. I think our offense is able to move on their defense as about effective as we can, and we get 24 points. So that's my final score prediction, is that West Virginia upsets Kansas 24-21 on the road in Lawrence. Do I feel good about that prediction? No. It's about a 50-50. It's one of those things like, if we play well, we will win. It's just, are we going to play well? And I know that's pretty wide open point of view to look at a game. Like, well, if we just play well, we'll win. Every team can say that. But what I mean by that is I think we have the pieces to beat them. I think we have the talent. I think we have the ability. I think we have the coaching. It's just a matter of, does it all work together like it did against Pitt late in the game, right? We held them. We held their team back, and their offense kind of picked up the slack, and everything worked together in harmony, offense and defense, and we won the game. Can that happen again this week? Can we be consistent on both sides of the ball? If you can do that, you can win. And I know that, again, that's easy to say for any team. But if we didn't have the talent to do it, I don't think I would say that. I think we have the talent to do it. And again, I think we have the coaching and the hard edge. And I think Kansas is a little soft. I'll just say that. Compared to what we've seen out of this West Virginia team, if we're embodying the hard edge, I think Kansas is soft. And I think that will play a factor in keeping them to 21 points as well. I don't know that they've come across a defense that is intense as this one. Missouri, they're not a bad defense, but Kansas was able to move the ball on them pretty early. They were up like 21-0. but it was the Kansas defense and some turnovers and stuff that allowed Missouri to come back. We don't have to do anything amazing on offense. We just have to stay ahead of the chains and basically don't turn it over. Don't force things that aren't there. And on times rely on our defense, probably to bail us out, maybe get a turnover, some sacks, something. And so that's what I think we're able to do that. Until the defense shows me that they can't compete at elite level, I'm going to go with the defense. The defense travels, and if we can limit, again, if the defense can limit Daniels in that offense, I think we have the advantage everywhere else. Physicality, stamina, conditioning, all that stuff. And I think our offense is going to be able to move on their defense. And so it really comes down to what our defense can do. So with that said, I'm going to close this out. I know I probably repeated myself 100 times on these stats and what I think is going to happen. But final score, West Virginia 24, Kansas 21. The Mountaineers roll to 3-1, 1-0 in the Big 12. And we'll have to see what happens. So far, I'm 2-1 on the season. I predicted to win against RMU. Yeah, kind of easy. I also predicted to win against Pitt, 21-20. We did win 31-24. I predicted 28-17 against OU. I got the 17-point part right, but I was about 18 points shy on the WVU side. But I think they get it done this week. I think the offense starts to click. And I think they're going to be able to move on Kansas's defense. And so with that, I'll close this out. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all your support. Remember, hype fades, stats speak. Goodbye. God bless. Go Ears.